Welcome to Charleston Uncorked, where the low country comes alive. I'm your host, Tony Leone, along with my main man, Scott Hairfield, and come on a journey with us through the Holy City as we explore food gems, craft cocktails, local sports, life outdoors, and the issues that are shaping our city. We are pouring it all out, all low country, no filter. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Charleston Uncorked, and we've got a good one for you today. I feel like Steve Harvey when I say that, and since
you look like Steve Harvey,
I'm the white Steve Harvey. So we got a good one for you today, folks, but we really do, because we've got Amber Kuehn, and I have been pumped. I've been talking to Amber online about getting her on the podcast, and there's a couple reasons, so I'm going to throw out a couple questions, but we are super excited to have Amber here, and she is from the Sea Turtle Patrol Hilton Head Island at seaturtlepatrolhhi.org if you want to check it out. But we're going to ask her a bunch of questions, and Amber, the first one for me is I think about the low country. Scott and I are born and raised here in Charleston, and I think about just low country life and the ecosystem here. But there's very few animals that have captured the hearts of people who live here and visit. I'd say there's two: dolphins and sea turtles. So I know what your world is. So what is it about the sea turtle that has captured the attention of people so much?
That's a good question, because people ask me, what's your favorite animal? And they know what I'm going to say. They know I'm going to say sea turtle, but it's not really. There's something about them that I really can't explain. Obviously, you can make them cute for a cartoon, and they're a lot easier to work with. But they have no charisma. Like, they don't seem to, in the wild, care about each other. They don't care about their offspring. They're dinosaurs. They've lost that maternal instinct. They are singular in the ocean. They are by themselves, and they just exist. And when people ask me what would happen if they just went away, extinct. And my answer to that is, we don't know. It's like removing the piece of a puzzle. Something that's been on the planet for millions of years has obviously inserted itself at the base.
Right.
And if it gets taken out, there might be a collapse. And we just don't know enough about the ocean to know what that looks like.
That's actually a scary prospect. When you have something attached to rescue, does that mean that they are still considered endangered species, or?
There are 7 different types of sea turtles. And to me, they're so different. But people see flippers in a shell and they're like, okay, it's a sea turtle.
Right.
But you've got leatherbacks that are 1,000 pounds on average. And then you have the Kemp's Ridley, who's about 150 pounds. One's got a hard shell. One's got a leather. One's black with white spots. One's gray with a hard. So, they are very different. And there's different levels depending on the Endangered Species Act territory you're talking about. But in the low country, we have 4 different types that could possibly nest on our beach. In Hilton Head, we've had 5 leatherbacks in 30 years nest on our beach, or 5 nests. We've had 2 Kemp's Ridleys in 30 years. It's very, very rare. And then we've had about 15 green sea turtles, which is, similar to the loggerhead in size. And then the loggerhead is, of course, thousands, and it's our state reptile, the loggerhead. So it's very common to have that.
I did not know that.
I was going to ask you, Scott, did you?
No, don't put me on the spot, but no, I did not. I did not do my homework.
Yeah.
Dang.
The conservation stuff is so long, and because it's a 30-year lifespan before the female can reproduce. So if you're looking toward the next generation, humans can reproduce before they're 20. And
Right.
loggerheads, they're going to have to wait till at least 30 years and survive at least that long to do it.
Wow. I got so many questions. I was going through, I was just rattling them off. So I'm just going to rapid fire them as you give us information. As someone who is trying to protect that life cycle, and be honest with me, do you ever see, like, when the baby turtles are going out to the ocean and you see like a bird wanting to snag one, do you wanna go out there with a broom and be like, "Get away from my turtle," and can you do that? Like, what do you do knowing that they're so at risk when they start their journey?
You have no idea how many people call me, and I don't know how they get my cell phone number, but they find us somewhere. We're coming to Hilton Head. We're very interested in sea turtles. We need to know exactly where the nests are and when they're going to hatch so that our kids can watch it.
Really?
I have no idea. There's 300 of them on average. You know, there's 14 miles of beach.
You don't have
There's
them
no
memorized?
way to be able to pinpoint that accurately. I mean, you might get lucky, but they're reptiles. It doesn't matter if it's light or dark outside. It
Mhm.
matters what the temperature is. So when the sun goes down, that's when the temperature gets cooler. In the summer months when they're hatching starts in July. So with reptiles not being able to control their body temperature, they can't come out at noon and 100 degrees and have a walk to the surf that's
Mm.
so long that they'll overheat and die in the process. So that's why the females nest at night. It's temperature. If they could see where they're going, that would be great. And the
Do they all
hatchlings,
do they all
hmm,
nest the same, or does it
mhm.
differ from species to
No, they're all the
species?
same. The Kemp's Ridley is a smaller turtle and it can move a lot faster than the bigger ones. So occasionally it will go out it knows its temperature ceiling, right? It knows when it can handle how much temperature it can handle. So if it feels comfortable, it'll come out and nest in the daylight when people will see it. Every now and then we get one of the larger turtles coming out during the day, and when we do, it's mass crowds, chaos, phone calls. You can't miss a 400-pound reptile in the case of a loggerhead or a green that
Yeah,
Jeez.
pulls
it's
itself up
huge.
out of the water with flippers. Like if it's its first nesting episode after 30 years of living and swimming in the ocean and it's walking or crawling for the very first time, it just knows how to do that because it did it when it was a hatchling. It's instinct. But, it's a struggle to pull yourself up the sand that heavy with elbows and shoulders, basically. You don't have feet to do that with.
So now, what do you guys do to support or assist them?
We don't. The only thing that we do is we go out the next morning, we look for the tracks, we find the nest, we mark it off, and we found that has been going on since 1985 officially on Hilton Head, but we found that is really helping the population because if you don't mark the nests, people will sit on it, dig a
Mm.
sandcastle in it, put their umbrellas straight through the hole.
Oh,
That would be
right.
devastating to the nest.
Oh,
And we
never thought
do
of that.
move over half of them higher, closer to the dune, because we know where the king tide line is. We know where the full moon's going to bring the water. And the incubation, they have to be in the sand for about 60 days without being saturated in water. So we will move them landward typically, more than half of them.
That's what
But
because I saw in the video that's on the website that it's a really
mhm,
good video, by the way.
thank you.
The the handling of the eggs. I was just curious because obviously Scott and I we went to the Citadel, so we're not very smart, especially since we graduated in the early 2000s. But we you're always taught don't move the egg, especially like the bird, because the mom will
Mhm.
never come back. And it's like, so what is the process for handling an egg when you have to move it?
That's a good question. So, for every beach in South Carolina, there's one permit holder, and the permit holder is qualified to train all of the volunteers to stay within guidelines. And those guidelines include moving those eggs within a 12-hour period. So, outside of that period, you take the risk of making the incubation process not successful because the embryo will attach to the inside of the shell after 12-hour period. And if you rotate the egg, it detaches and it won't reattach. So that egg will never develop. So we do have to go out daily starting May 1st in order to capture that window if we have to move the nest. So we get out at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it helps too because you're, 3 million tourists coming to Hilton Head. We need to move those or mark them before the mass of people get out there and start to set up. And to answer your question from earlier, like impact, obviously we're going to mark them so people stay off of them. I mean, that's federal.
Yeah.
But the things that aren't federal, but are city ordinances now, if you leave your personal property on the beach overnight, it's going to get removed because the documentation of turtles pulling that 400-pound body up the sand, seeing something in the middle of the night, just like if you ran into the wall on your way to the bathroom, it
Mm,
surprises you. You know it's a wall. The turtle doesn't know it's a chair or a tent. For all they know, they're dinosaurs. It could
right.
be a predator. So they turn around and they don't nest. And we document all of those. They're called false crawls. And if there is some sort of human interaction involved, like a chair, tent, towel, whatever, that gets recorded too. So what we did with that is we convinced the town of Hilton Head that it happened enough to where we needed to enforce an ordinance. So we do sweep the beach, not Sea Turtle Patrol, but the town contractor, and picks it all up. Do you get it back or
Cool.
no?
How are you tracking all of that? Just by going out in the morning and physically looking for tracks?
Yeah, we'll see the track, it hits something, and it turns around. Now we mark all of those just like we mark all of the nests for the Department of Natural Resources. We don't put a marker there, but we mark it in our GPS and GIS system. And there's a website called seaturtle.org, and that's South Carolina's database for sea turtle nesting, all the beaches.
Is Hilton Head more of a hotbed, or is like, because obviously we're in Charleston, so we've got our coastlines, and I know that I've seen a nest on James Island on Folly Beach, but
Mhm.
is the Hilton Head just your spot? How many people cover it? Is it common for them to be closer to Hilton Head? Like, what's that process?
That is the largest territory. So altogether, we have 20 miles that we cover. The largest sea turtle nesting beach in South Carolina is Cape Romaine Wildlife Refuge, just really near you guys. And
Mhm.
there's no development on that island. The turtles really like it. They don't like to nest in front of lights. And on a beach that has mansions and resorts, it's really hard to keep that under control. But over the last years, we revamped our lighting ordinance in 2021, and we made it a lot more strict and publicized that people needed to pay attention to it. And since then, our misorientations, that's when the hatchling comes out and goes the wrong way, because that's the part that's the worst. Like the turtle will say, oh, it's a light, I'm not going to nest there, I'm going to nest
Mhm.
just right over here, because she has this clutch, she has to put it in the sand, she's going to find a way to do that. But with the hatchlings, when they see artificial light, they go straight to it. They can't ignore it, even if there's a full moon and everything else is there. So when I lose hatchlings in the wrong direction, because they'll eventually get eaten by raccoons and birds and crabs and everything, the statistic is 1 in 100, once they
Uh,
hit the water, make it through the
s
predator
Once they hit
field.
the water?
Once they hit the water. What is it before
So
they hit the water?
before
Yeah.
they hit the water, that's the only thing I can control with, municipal ordinances and things to try to keep people's human impact down, like their things left on the beach, their holes. If you leave a hole from your sandcastle digging event and you don't fill it in, those hatchlings are tiny, and when
Mm,
they fall in, they can't get out, and it only has to be so deep. And if 30 of them fall in a big hole. 30 of them go toward the lights that were left on by the rental property. And then you're left with like 40 entering the water. Where's the 1 in 100?
yeah,
So they
seriously.
all need to be in there so that the one
Yeah.
can get,
So
yeah.
what is the population? And I'm asking because I think every time I go fishing, I see a turtle. As Scott and I, didn't we see a turtle last time we went
Yes.
offshore? I've
Yes.
seen now the leatherback. I've only seen a handful of those ever. Now I don't know if they've been to different species. I think I just file them all under loggerhead. I saw one recently in the Stono on the way to Kiowa, which was interesting. I've never actually seen one. His head popped up. And, but what's the overall population right now, and how's that compare to your goal or years past?
So, I can only speak to Hilton Head
Mhm.
because, in the past, and this is my 27th season. So I've always known how many nests we had, but not until 2010 did we start taking DNA. So there's a scientist at the University of Georgia. His name is Dr. Brian Shamblin, and he decided to ask volunteers from all of the beaches in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina to start taking DNA samples. And permissions were given, and we take one egg out of every nest, and the egg shell has DNA on it
Mm.
from the mother, the maternal DNA. And so, why that's important is that you can have a certain amount of nests, but that does not correlate to how many turtles you have because they lay one every 2 weeks. And they'll do that during the nesting season 4 or 6 times. So we have one that lays 8 nests in a season.
Wow.
And, then they'll skip 2 years. The nest numbers don't correlate to what your population looks like necessarily. So, when we had 411 nests one year, we had 161 turtles that laid 411 nests.
Hmm.
So when you have that big number, you think, ooh, but really the number of turtles hasn't gone up that much in almost 30 years for me watching it. What's happening is the turtles that we have come back year after year are laying more nests because the bigger they are, the more clutches they can lay.
Mhm.
So, we're keeping our population for the most part going. Now we're waiting on that big baby boomer situation where we've been working on them for years, and those hatchlings that we started monitoring and protecting the nests and paying attention have to survive for 30 years and then come back. So
Right.
we put
Wow.
the turtle excluder devices in South Carolina. It was enforced in the early 90s. So we aren't drowning the turtles in the shrimp nets. We've got boat strikes, but we've got hospitals for sea turtles now that we take
Mhm.
them to if they survive that. Fishing incidents where people reel them in, but now we know how to extract the hook properly.
Okay, I've never
hmm
hooked a turtle, and I've never heard of anybody hooking a turtle, but now I have to ask what happens because Scott, we troll, like we fish offshore. I imagine that's where it happens, right?
Well, you can drown the turtle. They're air breathers. So if you don't notice that it's a turtle on your hook, you might be just reeling in a dead turtle because you kept it under the water for too long. But you should probably know the difference. You could feel it.
Yeah.
And if it's superficial and you can see the hook hanging out of the mouth and you can get that out with a tool, if you're offshore, please do that. But if it has swallowed the hook, old days, you cut the line, you say, oh, it'll rust out. Mm-mm-mm.
I don't think I
No,
ever said the last part. No, I
yeah.
don't
Well,
think
I've heard my
so.
dad
Fine.
say that. So, oh,
Oh, did he really?
rust
Yeah.
out.
Come
Yeah,
on,
just
Yeah,
cut it
Dad.
off.
no, it
It'll be
doesn't.
fine.
It
Get back
actually
in there,
has to be
buddy.
surgically removed.
Okay,
So
Right.
so does that
if
mean
So bring
this
it in.
the fishermen should bring it? Wow, that would be an event.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's a 400-pound turtle, I don't know if you can even do that.
I will do
But
my
there are a
best,
lot of
Amber.
those juveniles out of there.
It's always you do feel lucky when you see one. There's just I think it's something innate because you know that
Mhm.
it is a rare situation. So even though I've seen a bunch of them, like, oh, you just feel so lucky when you see one out there, especially in the middle of the ocean. It's really cool. Have you?
Yeah.
All right, I got a silly question, only
Okay.
because we're talking survival. Have you seen the movie Sammy the Turtle?
No, I
Okay,
don't have kids.
so my son is 7. I'm gonna send it to you, and you're gonna have to watch it, and you're gonna have to report back to me. But it is about the treachery of surviving, and he hatches, and then he falls into a hole, and he has a hard time getting out, and the birds are trying to kill him, and then he makes it, and then he's gotta make it to the Gulf Stream, and so, I was just curious if but you haven't seen it, so there you go.
No, but it's interesting, when I was first starting out in this field, if you saw something sea turtle on it, you told all your friends and everybody went and bought it. And it was so rare to see anything with a sea turtle on it. And now they're in all the Pixar they're in the books, children's books. You see it everywhere. So
Yeah.
somehow they got this popularity. And to be honest, when I was a kid growing up here in this area, there wasn't a local ecology lesson even. You had the
Mm.
same book that the people in Ohio had, and that's what you learned
Oh,
about
wow.
the ocean and the continents. And, there wasn't anything about marsh grass and mud flat and sea turtles nesting on the beach. I didn't even know anything about that until after college. So,
Wow.
it's become a thing.
Well, that kind of flows into the next question, right? Is, how'd you get into this? What started it? Was it something you always wanted to do, or?
No, I grew up on the May River in Bluffton, and my parents, kids back in the 80s, and you didn't have all the rules, and you didn't get followed on a cell phone tracker.
That's
We
right.
had a motorboat, and we were allowed to take it out. I think I was 12. And, you know, when you're 12, there's no consequences. You just go, 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 and you hit a sandbar, one flies out of the boat, and you just get back on the boat and you brush it off. Like, if it happened to me now, I might die from that. But, you know,
Been
learning
there,
just
done
by
that.
doing and being in that environment and absorbing it, I think didn't realize how it got, ingrained in me. So when I went off to college, I went to private school, I went to college, and everybody's going to become either a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. So I did the pre-med, got to calculus, and that killed me.
Mm.
Came home and started to volunteer at the Coastal Discovery Museum with a pre-med degree. But biology is a very vague, it's really hard to do anything with that unless you're going on further. So I got into scuba diving. There was a dive shop on Hilton Head.
Cool.
They decided to buy a boat, take people offshore. They wanted all the people who worked with them to go get their captain's license. We all knew how to drive a boat, so we did that. And like you're saying, when you see things out there, it's just amazing because it's a whole new world the further out you get. So scuba diving was very easy for me, natural. I became a scuba instructor. And then with the boating experience, it just clicked to become a dive boat captain.
Mm.
So I had an experience on one of those trips that put me in this direction, so I'll give credit to the Hilton Head Island Scuba Dive and Travel on this one, because the boat was only operating for 1 year, because nobody wants to ride for 16 miles just to get to 70 feet of water so you can see 10 feet
That's
and there's
right.
something out there.
How deep are you going?
It's a shallow shelf. You have to travel forever just to get to some depth, right? Which 70 feet is minimal for scuba diving, really. I mean, 30 feet is a very basic dive. So there's wreckages out there, and you go there and you drop your people in there. They swim around the broken up ship, and then you get back on the boat, and that's all there is to it. But in order to get off the wreck, somebody has to go back down there, take the anchor off, and throw it in the sand, or else you're stuck there for a very long time.
Yep.
So in one of those, I was doing that, and I was down there by myself, and I saw this turtle approaching. And I had been working on the beach with sea turtles. I'd seen them nesting, but I had never seen them in the water. And it's a completely different thing,
Yeah.
because they're in their element, not when they're struggling with no feet to crawl up the beach. So, it just got really near to me. And I thought that if I was very still, it would get closer, and it did. But their eyes are on the side of their head, so usually they turn their face to see you if they're looking right
Mhm.
at you. But in the front, maybe I was just in that line of sight where she couldn't see me, but she was face to face with me, and basically I didn't want to get hit in the face with a loggerhead, so I just leaned back and let the turtle hover over me, and
Wow.
that was it.
You're hooked.
For the
Yeah.
rest of my life.
That's
Of
A lot
course.
of
that is
education, though.
crazy.
Went back to grad school, worked as a dive boat captain in Fort Lauderdale for 3 years, and then I went to Maui for 2 and did the same thing there. So it was always my backup, my income.
Mhm.
Turtles never paid me back. After 23 years, my nonprofit is finally able to give me some payment. So that's been about 3 years. I'm probably still in the negative, but
Well, I probably after all the sweat equity of
Yeah.
the first 25 years.
Right.
I got because I was curious. I think if you're a kid and you grow up around the water and people go, "What do you want to do for a living?" You go, "Marine biologist," because you just think I'm going to play around the water for the rest of my life. But you've literally you've had it's an interesting way to get to be able to call yourself that. You're like, no, it's actually a dive boat captain. I'm all kinds of things.
Hmm.
What's the visibility when you get out there? Because I always hear people talking about spearfishing, diving. I see a couple dive flags when I'm fishing some of the wrecks and the reefs, but I'm going, what are you seeing? Like, so what is the visibility when you did get out there?
It's not great. If you got 20 feet, it was a really good day, at least the 16 miles offshore. And once
Right.
you go 70 miles offshore, you're in the Gulf Stream and it clears up quite a bit. But,
Hmm.
then you got to watch yourself because you're not going to dive 600 feet to the bottom of that ledge. So, it's
That's
usually
deep.
spear fishermen or people looking for fossils and things like that, the
Hmm.
megalodon teeth, when you're in more inshore, that sort of thing. It's a completely different sport than when you're in South Florida, for
Right.
example.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I always wanted because people will say, why don't you ever scuba?" I'm like, I don't know why I would do it. I can only see your hand half the
Well, you
time.
have to travel a little bit,
Yeah,
but
you
Yeah.
travel.
when I was coming up, everybody wanted to be the SeaWorld trainer, dolphin trainer, right?
That changed, didn't it?
Well, that's orca. That's different. So that was it's just like that with marine biology. Everybody wants to be a marine biologist so that they can pet turtles and kiss them on the cheek and feel fulfilled. But to be honest, it doesn't take a marine biologist to do that. I mean,
Right.
I might be the only one with a master's degree in marine science on these nesting beaches. They're
Mm,
all volunteer. You can't compete with no pay, and
right.
people, all of them want to do it. So when I started to make this my career, it became me writing grants, entering data,
Mm,
presenting to civic organizations, conferences. Being a marine biologist and making a living doing it means you're on call 24/7. I really don't have a social life because I never know what my day's going to look like. Something washes up dead, I'm going to go there and take care of it. And,
Now who's
you know,
calling you?
the radio room in Columbia, the Department of Natural Resources, and it's a volunteer. That is volunteer. So you
mhm.
don't get your creds until you've put all of it in. And then the municipality looks at you differently and says, we have this new thing coming. It's called ecotourism, and we're Hilton Head, and we've always been the blueprint for eco-friendly vacationing.
Yep.
At least we've been claiming that for a long time. So now we're going to start to rebrand our brand, support our brand. And we would like to use the sea turtles for marketing. And there you
Hmm.
go. Now you're a marine biologist, but you're marketing or fundraising. You're trying to put your organization forward for awareness for the sea turtles and conservation. But there's always an economy balance with that.
Yeah. It's you can't anticipate any of that when you get into this.
No, and a dead dolphin washes up and tourists are all over it. The municipality is like, Amber, what do we do? And I said, well, I'm a volunteer. I'm going to go do an necropsy and I'm going to take all the samples that I need, take its head, take it back home, freeze it, take it to Charleston later. But the carcass is going to stay there as far as I'm concerned. And they're like,
Right.
oh no.
Oh, no.
I'm like, okay. But if we're going to do stuff like that and require that I make the beach pretty again, then maybe we need to see about hiring a marine consultant with a master's degree in
I
marine
was about to say,
science.
it sounds like someone's really qualified for that.
Yeah, during the heritage, I had to remove one from the 18th hole that had
I
washed
was
up.
there.
And I told them, I was like, well, I'm only required to take samples and leave it. And they were like, we can smell it, we can see it in every camera shot. You've got to take it with you.
So that's your team too.
Well, it's just me in that
It's just
regard.
you.
That is a different volunteer aspect. That's NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The turtle stuff is DNR, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But none of them pay.
I think come on. We're gonna do our best. And we're not popular yet, but we're gonna do our best to raise some hell. I so since we're on it and you mentioned a dead mammal that washes up, obviously I'm sure you weren't ready for a sperm whale to
No,
wash
I've
up on
had
him.
whales before. Pilot whale, pygmy sperm whales, false killer whales. You know, we get things like that. And some of them just look like oversized dolphins, but a sperm whale is pretty significant. And this wasn't even an adult. It was 30 feet long, whereas they get 50. It was a juvenile male. And I've always been a boat captain since I was 12, I think, because I was always the one driving the boat because I was oldest. So nobody else got to drive it. And I was on an ecology tour. I have a charter boat business and I run a passenger vessel for 20 passengers. And there was this bachelorette party and I dropped them off at Palmetto Bluff. And I looked down at my phone after 2 hours and it just had blown up. You know, all the code enforcement, beach operations, shore beach service, lifeguards, everybody was calling and saying, where are you? Where are you? You have to get down here now. And so I did. I got off my boat. I went straight to my car. I grabbed my go bag, which was my golden doodle, some water, a pillow, and some crackers. And I knew I was going to have to spend the night on this one because they said it's still alive. And so, of course, when the NOAA is notified, they have to call all of their higher ups. Actually, it's the Low Country Marine Mammal Network, which is the nonprofit that now manages for NOAA. It's a long story. You know what everything is like right now. But anyway, they had to wait for the officials from Florida and the officials from North Carolina. And all these people wanted to see it because it's so rare. So this is a sperm whale that lives in thousands of feet of water. It feeds at depths of like 4,000 feet for, I'm going to call it the Kraken so everybody knows what I'm talking about. These are like big squid. That's why the sperm whale's eyes are way back here. Like its forehead is way up here and the eyes are back here because when tentacles whipping happens and they've got sharp objects on the end and that's why they have scrapes all over them from that animal trying to get loose from them. And so their eyes don't get whacked because they're way back in the back. But I learned a lot about sperm whales recently.
I'm learning
so
a
here
lot
it
right
is
now.
on the beach.
This is incredible.
And the cops are there, Beaufort County Sheriff, code enforcement, the DNR law enforcement people are there. They've all got their guns and they're fully dressed with their bulletproof vests on and everything else. and I get there, people are behaving very well. And yes, it's a sperm whale. Yes, it's still alive. Okay, Amber, could you please stay there with it? Because we have been informed that people will want to take the bottom jaw.
What?
Like, okay. Well, I knew I was going to have to stay there anyway. I didn't know exactly why. And so the law enforcement was like, you got this, right? It's like, well, I guess so. I guess you got to go home. They did. And that's when they all came out of the woodwork. Anywhere from the women who were crying with drums, you know, chanting, to the Guido guy from New York who's trying to rally the forces to push it back into the ocean, 2 tons. To the frantic, you know, diamond ring wearing person who's coming up to me and saying, you need to do your job and put it back in the water right now.
Like, Amber.
Can't push a 2-ton animal back. And I've said it a million times, but I'm going to say it again. These are not stupid animals. They know they're dying. They don't swim for hundreds of miles to put themselves on a beach where they can breathe with lungs to die in peace rather than getting eaten alive by a shark. Because that's what sharks do. They sense the vulnerability. They know the animal is dying. It's time to go have dinner and go ahead and get it started. Right.
Okay. So is there a precedent for them being that smart and doing that, or is that your theory? Is that what's the ultimate conclusion?
No, well, in science, we call everything a theory. We would not be able to prove it unless we could talk to the animal.
Mhm.
But all
Fair
the
enough.
evidence suggests that they are way smarter than we give them credit for, which I believe that.
Mhm.
And, sharks do attack animals that are vulnerable and dying. And that's why dolphins attack sharks, is because they're protecting someone in the pod has shown vulnerability. They're sick or they're old or something where the shark is going to sense that electromagnetic impulse, go after that individual, and they don't want to see that family member get eaten alive. So, there's several instances. So pushing it back in the water would be a disservice. That would be giving it to the wolves, basically.
What's the craziest thing you've gotten a call about? Or is that it?
Well, no, I mean, there's crazy good and there's crazy bad. I get calls
I want to hear both.
constantly. Yeah, it's things like, oh, it's definitely a sea turtle, and I'm like, are you sure? Because that's kind of an area where we wouldn't see a sea turtle nest. Oh, it's definitely a sea turtle, and I get halfway across the county, and it's a diamondback terrapin. You know, stuff like that. And when I'm gonna talk
People.
about the good things that happen, usually people don't get this, and it's a little bit of an explanation. But for the very first time, and I haven't seen anything new in probably the last 3 years. But when I came across a turtle that wasn't a hatchling, a loggerhead turtle, sea turtle that wasn't a hatchling, and just with my auto response, getting a hook out of its mouth, picking it up, flipping it over so it can't crawl away, using my tools, superficial hook from the fisherman who has it in the surf, finally realizing that I just picked up a loggerhead that was about 30 pounds,
Mm.
which doesn't happen here or hasn't happened in my lifetime. So what happens is loggerheads leave the beach, and they're the only one out of these species that make the migration across the Atlantic to the Azores and Canary Islands. They hop off there. This is Africa and Portugal, and loggerheads just know how to get there.
Crazy.
When they get there, they love it, and they spend 10 to 15 years there. When I was in grad school, we didn't know where they were. We called it the lost years because we saw them as hatchlings, and then we saw them coming back to like the Bahamas, Caribbean region, like 10, 15 years old. But in that area where there's clear water, they can see their food. It's similar food sources, what they've grown up with in the clear waters around those islands. They don't want to quite grow up yet. They don't want to come to the low country where you can't see through the water and you're now going to have to sniff the water, smell
Uh-oh.
it. They don't sniff it. It's weird, but they can smell water. And when they
Right.
smell
Interesting.
water, they can smell what's nearby, and they eat things on the bottom where there's no sunlight. So whelk, urchin, horseshoe crabs, regular crabs. So when we start to see those juveniles in our area, and this year we've had quite a few reports of that size, that means to us, theory says that down there in the fun part where you can see your food easily, the inn is full. In other words, we have more coming back than we have had in the past,
Mm.
and they are being forced to find the food that's not as easy to find. And it's time to grow up a little bit sooner than they wanted to. And so now they're here, which means that in the next 15 years, we should see a boom in nesting density. And if they survive, and, this is encouraging to me, but it's just such a long wait.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
You got to feel like, I mean, you're going to be like turtle grandma by the time you
Oh,
see
yeah.
like some of the ones that come back.
No, yeah. I will be able to walk, but I don't think I will be able to kneel down in the sand and dig up to my shoulders anymore.
It's such a long process. So I saw the chart that you emailed us, and it looks like my stock portfolio. It'll go up and boom, it'll crash and it'll go up, boom. What's the reason for those big they're like really sharp dips?
Well, if you
What are-
look back into the earlier 2000 area, you have little dips.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I saw
yeah.
that.
And then 2010, coincidentally, when we started taking DNA, then we had this spike, and then another spike, and a spike, and then a dip. Like we had several up years, and then the dip started getting higher and then lower. It was like a more dynamic.
Mhm.
So That year just happened to be about 30 years after we started having these programs where we're protecting nests. So those are the hatchlings that left and came back 30 years later.
Interesting.
And that's how I know it's working, because suddenly we have more. But you used to be very able to predict. So one population is due back, they're going to skip 2 years and then they come back. And then the next population was a little bigger and it skips 2 years and comes back. So it would be low, higher, higher, low, higher, higher. And then you had that spike up, up, up. And then you had the big drop. So what's happening is the number of turtles increased in that time period, but now the turtles that we do have just are starting to lay more eggs. So if that individual doesn't come back that year for some reason, either it died or it didn't feel robust, the food source wasn't there, we lose a lot more nests because she didn't show up.
Mm,
So it makes it look bigger when it's really just the contribution is more. And if
got
she
it.
doesn't come, it's much less of a contribution.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
How do you
yeah.
know if she comes or not? Are you tagging these?
The DNA, remember the DNA that we take from every nest? So we know every female that's nested on our beach. We know how many nests she laid. We know what other beaches she's laid on. We know who her sisters are. We know who her mother is. And we know who her grandmother is. And so far, I think we've only had 2 grandmothers show up on the record. So if you have granddaughters nesting and they're 30 years old,
Mm,
how old are you, Grandma?
So you're getting all of that data
90.
by getting the
90.
DNA out of their eggs, right?
Eggshell. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
wow. So, um, this is the only thing I do know. I did do a little bit of research. May 1st to October 31st, right? Is that your nesting season?
That's the state's official
Mhm.
and, nesting season parameter. It's 6 months out of the year.
Okay.
We
So
start looking May 1st.
yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it feels like we've had a lot of king tides and, like these big swaths of dumping rain. Does
Mhm.
that stuff affect nesting or just increase your workload over those 6 months? What are you anticipating given this year? Because right now it's raining like crazy, so it's caused me to ask.
Yeah, so we do have a GIS system on Hilton Head that the town provides, and we have a GPS that gets us within 6 inches of a location, which is pretty significant because we did have an instance with Matthew or Irma, I can't remember, where the DNR, we lost 50 nests, 54 nests, and the DNR was like, well, you have to go back and find them. And with our little E-Trex Garmin, we were like 6 feet off in the northeasterly direction, typically, and I think we found 8 out of the 54. So we
My
invested in a
gosh.
$3,000 GPS, and
There
that
we go.
thing will put us right
Jeez.
on the mark. So we don't lose them anymore, but the only time we do lose them is when we have like out of the ordinary surf, because we've marked the king high tide line on our beach with that GIS system. So when we find the nest, we look at that line, and if it's below that line, then we're going to move it above that line. So for tides, we shouldn't have an issue, but if we have tides and surf from a storm that's unpredictable, then we do have some overwashes, but that's okay. It can go over it. It just can't sit in water.
Yeah, I was about to say we had a significant amount of that because of the hurricane. I mean, Scott and I did
Mhm.
an episode about some of the surfing that was going on that was popping off. That was very significant. Wouldn't you say, Scott? Like
Yeah, a
comparatively
lot.
past years?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
huge.
yeah, and I think maybe 10 nests were affected by that. It wasn't significant, it was the rain. So rain, you can't do
Mm.
anything about. One of my auxiliary volunteers suggested that we put an umbrella over the nest, which is cute. But, when the
Yeah.
water hits the beach, it doesn't just sit in the area where it fell. It saturates the entire area from the bottom up. And when it does that, there's nothing you can do because it's raining everywhere. You can't move it off the beach.
Mhm.
So you're just stuck with the rain. And unfortunately, more nests were affected by the rain on Hilton Head than the surf.
Dang. Do you get um do you get emotional about this stuff or are you able to keep it pretty scientific?
No, the 2 things that I usually get emotional about were the 2 stories that I told you, and I was able to control myself, so that's
Okay.
good.
I feel I don't know if I could do it, Amber. I feel like I would be, I'd be kicking people away from the nest. I'd be swatting seagulls and, I would be a mess
Well,
to the
I
ecosystem.
found that doesn't work. Some of my volunteers get really passionate like that, and all that causes is conflict, and then they don't like the Sea Turtle Patrol anymore, so now they're gonna get
Mm.
back at you. So
Oh,
you just have to
interesting.
be careful with people. Not everybody cares about conservation. They just don't care. I mean, you grow up thinking, "Oh, everybody loves sea turtles and everybody loves the planet." Not necessarily. If they pay $30,000 to stay at a beachfront mansion and don't want to turn off their lights, they're going to try to get out of it however they can.
Fair enough.
But it's just it's something that I have to deal with, and I've experienced that quite a bit. But as far as emotional goes, you can't get emotional when you find dead stuff. You're trying to collect the information from it, which will help the population at large. Eventually, we did necropsy that sperm whale. We had to cut it. We had to euthanize it first, and so it was alive on the beach for 2 days before the euthanasia came.
Yeah, it was
And
a long process. I remember I was so fascinated by it. It
I
was
was hoping it would die naturally, but it didn't. And I was, very interested in what was going on. I was sorry for the condition of the whale, but I wasn't emotional about it at all. Plenty of people were, and I've
right.
been asked to make a memorial with donations to Sea Turtle Patrol on the beach where it was buried, and I said, no, no, that's not happening. So it's nothing like that. The only
Right.
thing that I would say did affect me was when it started to communicate, and all marine mammals communicate through their blowhole. So they're
Interesting.
clicking and nothing comes out of their vocal. Like dolphins open their mouth, nothing comes out. Right? They're just begging for food. It's all their blowhole. So when he started to click at me, he was communicating, maybe not with me, but trying to communicate. And I knew that. And that was a little, you know, bummer.
Oh no, Amber.
That's
I don't
tough.
I don't think I can handle that. I'd be going,
No,
okay,
that's too much. That's too
let's get
much.
this thing
Yeah.
a
Yeah, it was.
Menhaden milkshake. Like, can we get a
So
mullet milkshake in here?
did y'all find anything medically wrong with it,
The
or
the necropsy did not reveal anything, so they took the tissue samples back, histology. I've called several times, but with the way that, like, NOAA in Charleston is permanently closed until further notice. So,
oh,
you know,
right, right.
they're not the ones that are analyzing that. It's down in Florida. But the girl that was there said, this has happened more frequently than not with male and juvenile. So they stick around with the females, the pod, till they're about 6 years old, and then the males go off on their own. And they
Mm,
might have a friendship with another male that lasts about 3 years, but typically they're pretty solitary in the ocean. But with the past cases that were very similar, she said it was a lack of food source starvation, which is to me worse. Because
yeah.
if there's no food, it's not a one-off disease. It's not something that's eventually going to work its way through the population and go away. If there's no food anymore, then we'll start to see more of that.
You can answer this however you want. I just want kind of more the scientific answer because it's a touchy subject. But some of the people that jumped on that and I want the marine biologist point of view, was the windmill activists. They're saying the windmills, like, because I've heard about how windmills are affecting marine mammals specifically. And boy, they leaped onto that, and there was no evidence of that. But I've heard other things where that's a situation. Is there any investigation on like how those things draw them away from what their natural migrations would have been and stuff like that?
So, you worry about the birds. My first thought,
Yeah.
birds run into that thing at the middle of the night. That's not going to be a good day for them. But there's noise, right? You've got
Yeah.
this turbine spinning, and just like a boat engine, the sound is amplified underwater.
Mhm.
And marine mammals use sound, it travels 4 times faster in water, to communicate. So it's disrupting communications. If it's too loud, just like your eardrums will rupture, their eardrums can rupture, and that's your equilibrium. But if
Mm,
you breathe air and you don't know what's up or down, that's when you drown. So I haven't heard any reports of drowned animals washing ashore, disorient, mass strandings haven't happened.
mm,
I think I would be more concerned with the drilling, which would be a lot louder even than a turbine, I think, offshore. So, there's things they're worse than that.
yeah.
The windmill thing.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not great. Anything we do is not great,
yeah, I know. You
but
kinda just
that's
wanna go
just
everybody said what 'cause I think I've heard more
yeah.
about it on the West Coast, is that's why but as everything that happens on social media, people latch onto an event that predetermines that it helps their cause. I just watched it as you did in real life. I watched it on social media about how many people had something to say about that event. It's
Oh,
like
there were so many things. I mean, I heard, just wailing, crying, just couldn't understand from that to
Nice pun.
where's who
it's a
was the
good pun.
Seinfeld character? Who's the Seinfeld character that put the
George.
where's George Costanza when you need him or
Yeah.
something like that?
That'd be me.
People be just like real
Art
Amber.
family.
disrespectful with
Amber, let me give you the sign. I could literally do it almost verbatim. The sea was angry that day, my friends. And as I sat next to the beast, a wave whooshed me on top of the beast, and I was standing directly over the blowhole, and I could see something was obstructing it. So I reached my hand down in there, pulled out the obstruction.
And
yeah.
All,
Kramer.
all my Seinfeld episode fans are gonna love that. I was able to do it. So
Yeah,
Kra
and you get everyone on that
Giggity.
beach. Just
unbelievable.
so many people.
Yeah. So this is I've thoroughly enjoyed this. How do so you did mention that this has been passion but a living. So how do people support something like this? Like how does the money come in? If you want to share people like what have been the challenges, are you in a good place? Because I think that's important for people to know because they should attach their love for these animals to some action. So give us some insight
Yeah,
there.
when I started the nonprofit, which is in 2018, I had always done this as a volunteer thing, but it was starting to take up a lot of my time and because we were trying to grow it. We needed the advanced equipment. We needed trucks so that we didn't have to go back and forth in the rain uncovered. We could take the street to go back down the beach instead of coming back through tourists and the liability that goes along with that. So there was a lot of improvements that cost money and I could fundraise for that. And every time somebody asks me to come speak, civic organizations, Kiwanis clubs, neighborhoods, kayak club, I mean, I went to all of those. And that was
Mhm.
my fundraising, was just interacting in the community. It's very time consuming putting together these presentations and showing up for free and just trying to get the word out. And that took years to get to a point where I have everything except for the one thing. And it takes a lot of passion to stick with something when you're not getting paid back. I mean, I'm getting paid back in my heart, but not, really getting
Yeah, but
paid for
you
anything.
can't eat that.
So the one thing that I mentioned is a building, like somewhere where people come to me instead of me going to everyone in the community, now they need to come to me. And so we've been working on that. We've got a very generous donation from a family foundation, and we will be contributing to the outfit of a town owned building that we can inhabit with exhibits and
Cool.
AV and share with a beach operations component, which has always been my passion as well, the beach and making it user friendly, but also friendly user because it's giving the awareness to people. Why is it important that I fill in a hole? I just know that you have to do it. I don't even know
Yeah.
why. So we do free public turtle talks and all the stuff that goes with it, just to kind of get them on board. And
Right.
most people are, particularly the kids, and that's how
Mhm.
we snag them.
Well, you go to the Charleston Aquarium, it's no,
You hook 'em.
again, you're accidentally throwing in a bunch of puns right now,
Yeah,
Amber.
and
You'll see them
I
in
love it.
post, but
I love it. You'll be
but
like, "Huh."
it is true though. I mean, you go to Charleston Aquarium, that it is the most the rescue, and then when the turtle swims around in the big tank, everyone's obsessed. So, Amber, I want you to officially be able to call us friends of the turtle. All right.
Yay!
Yeah,
Thank
I know.
you.
I know it's not much,
All
but
right.
you did not do this podcast pro bono. As the podcast
We
gets
paid
more
you.
popular, it will be in multiples of our donations to the turtles. But we're putting our money where the reason I did that is because I don't want to say these things and go, we're not putting anything behind it, because I want people to not just be able to enjoy the Instagram photos and the Facebook videos and going out to visit. It's you want to keep it going, you got to put your money where your mouth is a little bit. So I think it's fair to say that Charleston Uncorked is officially a friend of the turtles.
You do, and just to give you an idea of what we are looking at, even without a building. So when the DNA project started, it was federally funded for the first 12 years. And then after
Mm,
that, they moved on to a different project. So we pay $40,000 a year to get our samples analyzed. And not
It's a
all
lot.
beaches are able to do their payment. So,
mhm,
we try to keep that project alive. We also have insurance and all sorts of things, like the video you mentioned.
mhm.
That was a $20,000 video. So,
Golly, no wonder it was
Worth
good.
every penny.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Well,
well, it's got to
yeah,
last us for like a decade, but yeah,
yeah,
it is a spectacular video, and I would
it's very
encourage
good.
Yes.
everyone to go to seaturtlepatrolhhi.org to watch that 8-minute video, because it gives a good synopsis of what the Low Country is about, Hilton Head, and the Sea Turtle Patrol, and how we contribute to that overall conservation and tourism
Yeah.
awareness for
I
eco.
totally agree. It was a great video. So I do suggest everybody goes there. So on that note, how do people get a hold of you if they want to donate? What should they follow? Give us your socials.
Well, like every good nonprofit has a donate button on their page, so that's that. But on November 1st, our Christmas nest dedications open up. So you get a nest number, you get an ornament, you can dedicate it to yourself, you can dedicate it to someone you like, Christmas present, whatever. And we send the certificate and the ornament, and we'll be in communication with that person over the season of next year. When your nest was laid, how long did it incubate, how many eggs were in it, what was the success of the nest. And we are the only ones with that information.
Just trust the marine biologist on this one. I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I think I would go with the people who were actually doing the work. And yeah, so we appreciate that's our biggest fundraiser,
Cool.
the nest dedication.
And do y'all do any other events throughout the year that people can kind of see or do what you're doing?
Not quite yet. We haven't gotten to that point because we don't have any activities to offer until we have
Mhm.
space. Um, yeah, we'll get there. We do plan to, but not quite yet.
Excellent.
Just the
Well,
events page on our website will tell you what we're doing.
perfect. Well, I'll tell you what,
Mhm.
we'll follow closely, and whenever we see that the space is up and running, we'll make sure that we'll probably get you back on, talk about it. Hilton Head's not too far away. Maybe we'll pop in and do a little social visit. That's what we like to do. So
That'd be great.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I know you're
Yes, thank
clearly
you.
busy, and you fielded a bunch of questions from two knuckleheads, but I feel smarter as a result. I really do. But thank you so much. Any parting words for people that are listening to this?
You don't realize what your you think you're just on the beach for the day, and you didn't leave it exactly like you found it, I'm pretty sure. But it's really important to make it close, because if there's just even a small hole where your feet were dug in and you didn't put it back, that could affect a hatchling trying to make its way to the ocean. Trash on the beach, it all gets in the ocean because that water
Mm,
comes in and just takes it back out. So try to pick up even the small trash. And cigarette butts, come on,
Come on
don't
now.
bury them in the sand.
What are we doing?
It could be in a nest when a turtle digs one, and I've found plenty of cigarette butts in and amongst sea turtle eggs. We don't like seeing that. It's just ugly. It's not a good look. So picking up your trash, filling in your holes, taking your stuff home with you. It doesn't seem like we're asking for much, but if I could tell you percentage-wise how much that gets done, it's just not a lot. So
Ugh.
easy stuff makes a big difference.
Yep.
So listen up,
Yep.
kids.
Listen up. You don't want to go to another beach where they don't have the kind of Scott. You were telling me about how you went to go swim in Puerto Rico, and they're like, "Why are you swimming here? You will get sick."
You can't swim there.
The trash.
Yeah.
There was signs everywhere, and they're like, you can't swim here. Same thing out in California, San Diego, when I took my kids out there to go swim, and the lifeguard ran over immediately and was like, "What are y'all doing here?"
Mhm.
I was wondering why nobody else was on the beach, in these rental chairs that I just spent $200 to rent for the day. You could have stopped me about 30 minutes ago, guy, and instead we sat there for a little bit enjoying the view. But yeah, my kids were bummed because they were like, "Oh, they've got boogie boards." I was like, "Why do they have boogie boards if you can't swim in the ocean?" It's a terrible experience.
We take it for granted, but the low country, I know it doesn't seem like it, Amber, because you're seeing the nitty gritty of it, but I think they do better than a lot of other people around the country for sure.
Well, Beaufort County in particular has always been at the forefront since the 70s.
That's awesome.
I'm proud to be from Beaufort County.
There you go.
Sure.
All right. Well, as
Sorry,
we say,
Charleston County.
well, we'll just file it all into the low country, okay, for now, and we'll all
Okay.
be cool. All right. Well, I hope this is the first of many as we as our podcast grows, but you've been at it for so long, I imagine that we'll be reaching back out. But thank you so much for doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure. Folks, donate, put your money where your mouth is. Don't just be looking and taking it for granted that your kids want to see a real life dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now, get them an ornament. Make it happen. And Charleston Uncorked is a friend of the turtle. So anyways, thank you, everybody. As always, like, share, subscribe. That's how we grow this thing. And as always, keep it local, people. Cheers. Thank you for listening to this episode of Charleston Uncorked. The only way we are going to grow is if you tell your friends. So please like, subscribe, and share. We would be eternally grateful. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Charleston Uncorked. We hope you enjoyed.